This is News Guardian. With Greg Aldridge and Chip Tarbin on WFJX Fox Radio 910.
In 1972, a crack commando unit was sent to prison by a military court for a crime they didn't commit. These men promptly escaped from a maximum security stockade to the Los Angeles underground. Today, still wanted by the government, they survive as soldiers of fortune. If you have a problem, if no one else can help, and if you can find them, maybe you can hire the A-Team.
Oh, yeah.
So you really think you're Hannibal?
Yeah, we are your political A-Team, baby. And if you've got a problem...
And no one else will help you.
If you've got a dirty politician and no one else will help you, and if you can find us, and you have money, then just maybe you can hire the political A-Team.
Wow, that's good. Is that going to be our commercial?
For what?
For wrangling up additional folks to help politically?
Yeah, well, we may not win an election, but we can sure raise all holy HE-double hockey sticks on the status quo and the establishment. So there's something to be said for that.
Well, it was interesting watching the news this morning.
Yeah?
Yeah, because the White House is out with they've got their friends in the media now spinning for them. It took them a day or so to get it together, but they've got their spin machine working to get this Bergdahl issue back in line.
Well, if you were going to, pull this little operation that he pulled, okay, why wouldn't you come up with the lie in advance so that you could start telling it when it happens
I know you think everything is a conspiracy and everything is planned.
There's not a conspiracy.
I think they just messed up. It's simple as that. They just made a mistake. They miscalculated. They figured they could just get away with this and no one would pay attention.
Now, seriously, whether you think it's going to be okay or not, why don't you prepare for all contingencies?
Because they made
Are they this belligerent now?
They made a mistake. They're that overconfident. They figure but the press is in line now. They get a wonderful report about how this is all part of the plan to bring Taliban peace talks to fruition, and how this is the one opportunity they had to bring back an American, and that's the first priority, is to save American lives. He was the last POW left, and we were going to get him out. And people should be thankful to the administration for caring so much about their soldiers. And if you're against it, you must hate Muslims and American soldiers and peace.
So our idiotic president is game for giving up, five trained, hardened terrorist criminals.
Oh, but they're under tight control,
to get back this deserter. But he won't lift a finger to get that guy out of Mexico, to get the Marine out of Mexico.
He had guns, Greg. Guns are bad.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah, he had guns. He's a Marine.
He legally had guns.
Doesn't everybody have guns?
Not everybody.
I've got guns.
Only bad people have guns.
Don't you have guns?
I have guns, but I'm a bad person.
You've even got zombie ammunition for your guns.
Well, that makes me a bad person, Greg. I have guns. I don't deserve to be saved by the president if I have guns. I'm part of the problem. It's my responsibility that people died in school shootings because I own a shotgun.
So the only people that deserve to be saved by the president are servicemen who turn their back on their service, convert to Islam, and denounce America. And then he'll save you. This is very telling.
Diversity is
because here's what happened here. You saved a Muslim, and he gave the terrorists back their five Islamic generals. Do we see a pattern here? Remember 5 or 6 years ago, at the very beginning of this little odyssey, when many people were saying our president is a Muslim, he's lying to us. Now the problem isn't necessarily that he's a Muslim; it's that he's lying about it. That's all. That's usually the offense in anything somebody believes or does. 9 times out of 10, the problem. The biggest problem isn't the thing they believe or that they're doing. It's that they're lying about it. It's the lie.
Well, there's another lie going around because, we've been talking here on our radio show for a long time about impeaching the president. In fact, I posted an article about the other day when Albert Trojan was here about all the things you could have impeached the president for already. But Lindsey Graham, that stalwart member of the establishment Republican team, that icon of statism, that icon of all the things that are wrong with the Republican Party, is talking about impeaching the president. Greg, are you excited? Are you excited that Lindsey Grahamnesty is talking about impeachment? Does that make you feel better about things?
No, because whatever you're going to talk about is if it's coming from Lindsey Graham, is probably just some political ploy with no substance whatsoever, designed to help him in a tough nomination process because he's getting his clock cleaned down there by somebody who's not a leftist rhino establishment Republican. So go ahead, but I'm just going to tell you on the front end, I'm skeptical that he means it or that he's serious.
Okay, so here's the first paragraph of this article. Senator Lindsey Graham warned Wednesday that Republican lawmakers would call for President Obama's impeachment if he released more prisoners from Guantanamo Bay without congressional approval.
Is this like Laura Ingram's butt monkey? But he has to do it again.
Yes, exactly what it is. It's kind of like if you've seen that parent at the grocery store.
The stop or I'll say stop again parent?
Yes, exactly. So they're causing all sorts of chaos in the grocery store, pulling things off the shelf. Johnny, if you do that one more time, you're going to get in big trouble.
No, the best is when they count. Is when the kid's doing something that it could stop immediately, but the parent counts. I'm going to count to 5, and you better stop. 1. This is the way that works in my house. 1, wham! I'm sorry, Diddy. I won't do it again. He'll count to 5.
Well, you can count. The counting thing is not necessarily a bad thing as long as the BAM comes after the number. That's the problem. If the BAM never comes, then the kid just ignores you and it has no impact. You have to, at some point, there has to be the threat of the BAM, or it doesn't work.
I get that. And there's a lot of schools of thought on that. I just think it's dangerous to teach children that they can get away with what you're telling them to stop doing for another period of time and then they have to stop. They need to understand when you've told them to stop, that's when it stops. There's no grace period in proper behavior.
And there is a... but according to Lindsey Graham, there's a grace period because you can violate the Constitution once. I mean, think about it, people. I mean, I put up article. I'm putting an article up on our website, newsguardians.com, and it's 2 sentences. It's a link to the article, so Lindsey Graham is talking about impeachment. The question is begs is simple. If President Obama broke the law this time, why don't they impeach him now? I mean, if he broke the law this time, why are they waiting for him to do it again?
I'll tell you why. I'll tell you exactly why.
I know why, too. But go ahead and tell the audience why you think that is.
Because Lindsey Graham doesn't mean it. This is just a ploy. Lindsey is a part of this whole thing. He's playing a part in a ruse for our benefit to watch so that he can act as if he's being tough on this and be able to say he's being tough on this while he's down there campaigning and he's living life rough as an incumbent right now in his state. But I would imagine that he'd already talked to Obama before this and said, look, you're making life tough. Here's my situation down there. I'll be with you on all the stuff I'm with you on. You know me. Lindsey Graham loves me some Obama. But don't do this again because I need to warn you, and just that way I'm safe and I won't have to actually bring up the impeachment or come up with a story as to why I'm not. And Obama says, yeah, that one's fine. We'll do it another way next time. Don't worry. You go right ahead. Just, win your re-election because I need you there for that amnesty vote.
And there you go.
I need you there for that amnesty vote, Lindsey. So sure, no problem. Go ahead and tell them you'll impeach me. And then they had a beer. What kind of beer do you think the president drinks?
Coors Light.
You think? I think he drinks near beer. You know that like 1.5% stuff?
No, I think he probably drinks. I mean, I don't know. I'm sure if there's people out there that are good, staunch conservative Americans who like Coors Light.
Well, thank God we've got a governor that can drink.
Well, Well, you know,
I'll bet our governor could drink our president under the table.
I know. I've got the picture to prove it. They put on every article about Terry McAuliffe of him taking shots on CNBC. I never thought I'd see the day when Bill and Hillary's fundraiser would be our governor.
Oh my gosh,
we live in strange and wonderful times, like a time where if you have a bakery, you have to give your employees sensitivity training after losing a lawsuit.
Yeah, stick around this morning. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about what happened at a high school awards ceremony that made a mother grab her children and leave and then complain to the media immediately. We'll also talk about a little trick that was pulled in the budget process. This is why you can't trust politicians. And I had a very strange argument on Valerie Garner's Facebook page the other day. If you remember Valerie Garner, she writes for the Roanoke, I guess it's the Roanoke
Guardian,
Free
Star,
Press or
Free Press, whatever it is.
Very nice lady. She was running for city council.
Right.
So we're connected on Facebook, and somebody was all upset at Mark Warner because he had come out in favor of making the VA guy resign, and they were just all in arms because they just couldn't believe Mark would do this, And I asked a simple question. I'm like, well, why? What on earth would make you trust Mark Warner or any politician for that matter that you don't know personally? Do you know Mark Warner personally? Because maybe they do. Sometimes people know people, right? And I ended up in this big long conversation about how we have to be able to trust them, and you've got to make decisions and choices based on what you know about them and their history and well, that's all well and good, but what makes you trust them? I'm not saying what makes you think they might vote your way or they might be the person. We're talking about trust here. And it just blew their mind that my default position is you don't trust politicians.
Yeah.
Until they give you a reason to trust them. And that's not just politicians. You don't trust people you don't know until they demonstrate they can be trusted.
There's a reason why you get a contract when you work into a business deal with somebody that you don't know, because contracts protect you from people who might be unscrupulous. And if they have scruples, then the contract's no big deal.
So the situation with the budget, the state budget, of course, is the big state issue right now, and it's been a battle. But we're going to tell you about what the Republican-controlled House of Delegates snuck in to the budget, covered with a lie, saying, nope, this is just to change the estimates in the budget process. And what they were really doing was throwing $160 million more money into light rail and hoping nobody would notice, using a little trick.
They're trying. Is that weird little trick you see on the internet?
Don't trust politicians.
But they're saving the planet, so it's okay to break the rules, Greg. Anything works if you're trying to.
Do you want me to jump over the board and smack you this morning?
You better bring some friends on the ladder and lunch, because you'll be here all day, brother.
I'm Greg. He's Chip. We're the News Guardians. We'll be right back on Fox Radio 910.
News Guardians on Fox Radio 910.
Welcome back. Your political A-team is awake, alert, coffeed up, and on the job. And no, I did not have the pot coffee that we talked about yesterday on the radio.
You don't have a smile a mile wide. Yo.
I don't think a smile a mile wide would fit in this booth.
I have to say, though, that while Greg and Elizabeth got to talk about that on the radio, I did forward you that story because I did see that on the Drudge Report. I thought of you.
Why did you think of me? Because of Monday?
Yes. Because Colorado is really good about libertarian stuff, liberty and stuff when it comes to pot. But on other things, they're not so good. We'll talk about that after the break, about how sensitivity training is being forced on a bakery because of their beliefs. I mean, it's unbelievable. You can't even make these stories up.
No, and you can't make this up. Like we said before the break, don't trust politicians. Because while we've been in a budget battle all year over serious budget issues and trying to stick Medicaid expansion in there, which is going to bust the state budget, they were sneaking around behind our backs, throwing millions more dollars into light rail.
Light rail?
In a vote on a, quote, technical correction, end quote, amendment of House Bill 5002 that recently took place in the Virginia General Assembly's special session to pass the 2015 budget, House members unknowingly now, approved a $165 million increase in light rail funding. How does that happen? Now, I'd like to know which of these people really did it unknowingly and which of them were in on this little fix. But here's how this works. You've got the budget bill. It's Bill 5002, correct? And in this thing, you've got numbered sections. And what they did was they wrote an amendment. It's amendment number 439 to the transportation section of the budget. And here's how this amendment reads. Page 377, line 16, strike $160,361,138 and insert $237,748,173.
It's just technical stuff, Greg.
There's a list. That's not. I mean,
Greg is technical.
That exact thing is repeated for line 17, line 19, line 20. The numbers are different because they're replacing the numbers in there. Now, Legislative Services tags this for the legislators. They wrote in this that this was adding no money. So, Legislative Services basically lied in their summary of the bill. Remember how we always say, don't read the summaries, read the bills?
Amen, brother.
Here's another one. Another example of why you do that. So anyway, I don't doubt that many members of the House of Delegates didn't read it. I'm gonna guess that our own Chris Head probably didn't read it.
It's just technical.
Because
they said it didn't cost any money.
Because the people who were pulling this little scam just said, we're just changing the estimates. See, this is what they told them. They told the lawmakers voting on this that what we are doing is we are taking out the original estimates that were included in this, and we're replacing them with accurate numbers now that we have more information. And evidently didn't say, and by the way, we're going to increase the light rail funding $160 million. That was left out, evidently.
Well, those are the little details that...
And this is done by the Republican-controlled House of Delegates. This is not Democrats in charge of this situation, people.
Greg, you hate the environment. You hate children. And consequently, you must hate everyone. You hate black people. You hate people like Justin Bieber. You hate everybody because you don't like light rail. Don't you know how important light rail is to the environment?
You're leaving out so many things.
I know. I just you hate so much. I can't get all
Puppies?
Puppies, kitties.
Bunny rabbits?
Anything cute and fuzzy, you hate them too.
Oh, I hate turtles.
Yes.
There was a turtle this morning as I was driving in from the mountain.
I bet you crushed him with your car on purpose.
And I come in so early, there's no traffic. I come all the way down and never hardly ever pass a car. And this little turtle, he was soaking wet, but he was fully extended out of his shell, and he was trying to get across that road as fast as a turtle goes, and he was 1 foot away from making it to the safe side of the road and off into the woods. And what do you think I did, since I hate turtles so much?
You ran over them, and then you stopped your car, and you rolled over them again, and then you got out, you stomped on them, and then you took a picture of it to post to your friends, and then you complained about light rail because you hate the environment.
In all honesty, I was so excited that turtle was going to make, because I figured there's nobody behind me. He's going to make it into the woods safely across the road. And I was thinking, wow, he picked the perfect time to do it in the morning where there's not very many cars. And then I started thinking about all the people out there that actually would go out of their way to run over that turtle. And what a horrible people they must be to do. But they're out there.
Right.
I've been behind cars and watched them do stuff like that, swerve to actually hit something running across the road.
I know. But, what's interesting, this whole thing about reading, I mean, there's just an assumption that people make that their lawmakers are reading the bills and they understand these things. And, that's the kind of stuff that happens all the time. And that's, how much was that?
160 million.
$160 million of your tax dollars got added in your conservative House of Delegates, controlled by your Republicans, who you trust. We talk about not trusting Mark Warner. Well, you shouldn't trust your Republican congressmen, your Republican House of Delegates members, your senators either. They all need to be watched. And when they don't do their job, when they're not doing what they should be doing, you should poll axe them.
Let me.
It means get them out, not literally pole axe them, because you likely don't have a pole axe sitting around your house. But you should get rid of them and find somebody else to do their job, because they're not entitled to that position.
You know, in an interview the other day with Tony DeTora, candidate for U.S. Senate, I asked him about reading the bills. Before we move on to the next subject, when we come back from the break, I'm going to play his answer. I've recorded it.
Okay.
I'm going to play his answer to what he says about lawmakers reading the bills. It's you'll be interested to know.
You can hear more from Tony tonight at the Roanoke Tea Party meeting at Tanglewood Mall.
True.
Or Tanglewood Holiday Inn Tanglewood.
It's 6:30, the Holiday Inn Tanglewood on Starkey Road, not the mall.
Thank you.
At 6:30, he'll be there to speak, and he'll stick around to answer questions. So it's your opportunity to meet him in person.
He's a cool guy, too.
He is. He's a rocket scientist. No joke. I'm Greg. He's Chip. This is the News Guardians. You're listening to Fox Radio 910. We'll be right back.
This is News Guardian. News Guardian with Greg Aldridge and Chip Tarbut on WFJX Fox Radio 910.
Welcome back. So we made a promise before the break.
Good.
You support the promise?
Yes, I'm glad you made a promise. Now keep your promise.
Now, if you're just tuning in, we were talking about the little ruse that was pulled in the state budget process, where an amendment was offered claiming only to be correcting some estimates, wasn't actually supposedly changing any budget, any real amounts. When it turns out it was adding $160 million to light rail, and many lawmakers evidently didn't read it. They were just told by their leadership, this is just a technical bill. It's just to correct some estimates. And so it got passed because they didn't read the bill. Now, they might have read the summary. And what we've learned about summaries, and hopefully what you will understand if you start getting into, and we get you interested enough to start paying attention to what legislation is being proposed and passed, is that you can't trust the summaries. Let me say that again. You can't trust the summaries. Anyway, on the subject of lawmakers reading the bills before they vote on them, I asked candidate for U.S. Senate Tony DeTora about that very thing, and here's just a little short answer from that.
In 1972, a crack commando
It is like Tony DeTora.
by a military court.
All right.
Wrong file, Greg.
There you go.
It's become widely known that members of Congress are not reading the bills that they're voting on. They've admitted as such. What's wrong with this picture?
Well, everything is wrong with that picture. Their responsibility is to know what they're voting on. They have to read the bills to know what's in them. Now, everybody has legislative staff who also reads the bills and provides recommendations and advice to their bosses. But if you don't understand what's in the bill, you can't vote properly. Well, actually, in that case, you should always vote against whatever's in front of you. But fundamentally, they don't read the bills. They don't provide enough time to read the bills. I mean, if you have a 2,000-page bill, we saw this with Obamacare. You have to pass the bill to see what's in it. Yes, that might be glib, and we might use it in a funny way, but it's actually very serious. We don't know what's in that bill. Staff members wrote it, lobbyists submitted suggestions, different members may have read a portion of it or a section that they really care about, but 2,000 pages of legislation, I mean, that's incredibly difficult to get through. In the Senate, a single senator can object to a bill being considered on the floor if it hasn't been read yet. And as a senator, I would make sure that we either had enough time after the introduction of the bill to read it, or that it gets read on the floor.
So, did you know that any senator can do that?
Well, you'd be very unpopular because you're cutting into their vacation time.
Well, and you're cutting into their ability to get stuff voted on without people really knowing what's going on.
Because I'm sure leadership, you don't want to get all the detail. This is a lot of getting into the weeds, Greg. You're getting into the weeds.
There you go, talking about weed again. Are you trying to get me on another rant?
No. Well,
you ought to. Sometimes it's entertaining.
Your ranting gets raves.
Does it?
So,
what is going on? In fact, I want everyone to call your state representative and complain about them not paying attention. Now to Ralph Smith, Senator Ralph Smith's credit.
Yes.
He has been proposing a bill, and he's proposed this same bill numerous times, that would force them to actually give them more than a couple hours notice of voting on the budget bill, because oftentimes they get the final version of a budget only hours before they have to go
vote on. It's like a phone book size document with a bunch of legal mumbo jumbo, and you have to digest. But they give you a PowerPoint presentation with the highlights.
Yeah, right. You get a little propaganda session, so that they can basically lie to you about what's in the budget and get you to vote for it, or if your leadership is against it, to get you to vote against it, because that's really how all this works. Evidently, if you're in the General Assembly, you don't know any more about what's going on than the average person does. We're propagandized by them to support or be against things, and they're propagandized by their own leadership.
Well, you remember the Dave Nutter commentary when he voted for the omnibus bill back in 2009?
5202?
Yeah, where he was like, because one part of that was they had these astronomical...
they were called abusive driver's fees.
Abusive driver's fees. And he actually said on a radio interview, well, it only applies to out-of-state drivers.
And you think
somebody told him that, probably, because it didn't. It was
Dave Nutter didn't read the bill. Somebody, propagandizing the members, somebody in leadership, running this, false information operation to get it passed through, told him that. And he didn't read it for himself.
And, of course, no one seemed to... And the funniest part about that was when that was brought up, no one seemed to... There's a video of him on, I think it was a Channel 10 News, saying that publicly and making a fool of himself, and Channel 10 calling him on it. And you would have thought people would have been offended, would have been, get rid of this guy. No, they put him in place to run against John Edwards for the state Senate, because despite the fact that he couldn't read a bill, it was that dopey to say that in front of a news camera. He was perfectly fine to run against John Edwards.
No, he was perfectly fine to run against John. He was a sacrificial lamb to make sure that the Tea Party candidate wasn't going to be the one running against John Edwards. That's all that was about. Now, the interesting thing is he was replaced by somebody who's entirely better.
Yes, this is true.
And where I live up on the mountain, his replacement is actually my delegate. And, he's not a stalwart fighter for liberty and the Constitution, but I have to tell you, he's leaps and bounds better than Dave Nutter.
So,
my kids have this theory.
What's your theory?
Well, that the weirder the politician's name is, the worse they are on Constitution and liberty issues.
Well, gosh, I'll never run for office then.
Why?
Because Tarbutton's a pretty weird name.
They don't laugh at your name.
Well, they know me. But if they didn't know me, they'd laugh at my name. I mean, I can assure you, children have laughed at my name. The first day of school, every day of school of my life, Leslie Tarbutton. Leslie's my real name. Leslie Tarbutton. Who's she? What's that weird name? Oh, it's a guy.
Although,
I thought I'm scarred or anything.
If we were just talking about Senator John Edwards.
Ooh.
His name's not weird. Edwards is not an odd-sounding name, but he's
terrible.
horrible.
He's the worst.
So I'm going to have to bring that up to them, because their theory, I think, is starting to break down. Yeah.
But speaking of pot, Colorado is the pot capital of the world, and that's where you can buy that stupid coffee you were talking about yesterday. Stop. Greg is just making noises in the thing. He is not smoking weed.
Thought for a minute.
So
I got to hold it in.
So In all honesty, as much as you make fun of Colorado and Washington State, I mean, they're right. The federal government doesn't have the legal authority to outlaw that nonsense. But it's a shame that their fight for liberty only extends to
fingers, dude.
Yes, to getting baked. But if you own a bakery, liberty is not within your realm in Colorado.
I'm confused about this whole situation, and not because it appears I'm smoking marijuana on the radio, but we at the very beginning of our political activity in this last decade, we quickly came to nullification as a process to stop the federal overreach. Mm-hmm. And when we would talk with people about it, to just general average people, it made a lot of sense to them. It made a lot of sense to them that our duty was to uphold the Constitution, not to follow laws that were passed in lieu of the Constitution, that we were supposed to, that we should be, and our elected officials and our sheriffs, that they should be disobedient to illegal laws, trying to force them to have us act in unconstitutional ways. And there's so many important things that this could be used to deal with. Yeah, and the establishment and lawyers and politicians, they came at us guns a-blazing at the idea of what we were trying to accomplish with stopping all of this unconstitutional activity. So it's not getting widely used, or wasn't getting widely used until the pro-legalization people latched onto this so that they could make pot legal.
And technically, they're right.
Oh, they're right. I'm not saying that they're wrong. I mean, they're absolutely right. I mean, you think about this. 100 years ago, we amended the United States Constitution to make alcohol illegal because, obviously, the federal government doesn't have any authority with that. So to have that authority, they needed to go through the amendment process so they could be given that authority.
And the good thing was when people realized it was a bad idea, what did?
They amended the Constitution and took that authority back.
Right.
But somehow, just short decades later, they thought they could make marijuana illegal and not amend the Constitution, as if they have some power over a plant, but they don't have over a distillation process. How do you say that process? Distillation process. This is ludicrous that amending the Constitution has to be done for alcohol, but not for marijuana or some other drug.
And again,
that's just
if the country wants to make a pot illegal, that's fine. I mean, I'm not saying. This is not about pot legalization or whether pot's a good thing to have legal or not. That's a whole other conversation.
No, it's about the process necessary to give government the authority to do something like that.
Because if you've decided now that pot should be legal, you can't just amend the Constitution. It should be a simple process. You amend the Constitution, the people speak. If a large enough majority of people in each state want to get it, it'll pass. And whether you like it or not, it's going to be the will of the people would rule in that. That's
what would you say? You couldn't amend the Constitution and say this is to strike the authority of the federal government to regulate marijuana. They don't. That authority's not in there. How do you strike it? It doesn't exist. What do you say? The amendment would say this is to tell the federal government it never had the authority in the first place, and you're going to make that as an amendment? Seriously?
No, I'm saying the whole thing's backwards.
I know, though. This is so
That's
stupid.
why you have to go through the process of doing it right, so that the people have the power to make the laws and give the government the authority that it's supposed to have. When you just allow government to take authority to do the things you want to, DOMA being a perfect example. The federal government has zero ability in the Constitution to define what marriage is. There's nothing in the Constitution that gives them that authority, but everybody on my side of the fence thought DOMA was a wonderful idea because it gave them what they wanted. Well, the problem is if you give the federal government the authority it doesn't have to tell you what marriage is and they define it the way you want to, you also give them the power to come back later on and define it in a way you don't like, which is what's happening now. And now everybody's mad about it. Well, you open Pandora's box because you let the federal government have the power to do it. That they wouldn't have found it anyway.
This process of us trying to explain the folly of what people around us are trying to do to fix what they see wrong, and being ostracized for it, attacked for it, only for us to then come around and say, I told you so, when we turn out to be right, is really getting tiresome with me.
Well, you have to, unfortunately, people have to be affected by it to see the argument. When they start being affected by these things, then all of a sudden it's like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Unfortunately, that's the way people are. So we'll see a person when we come back from our break. Let's talk about a specific person who's being affected, because Colorado, that bastion of liberty for pot smokers, not so much if you own a bakery. You can get baked, but you can't own a bakery and have liberty.
All right, we'll talk about that, and we'll also tell you what happened at a high school awards ceremony to make a mother grab her children, run, and immediately go to the media and complain about the ceremony. This is just, I don't know if you're going to believe.
Both these stories are unbelievable.
You can't surprise me anymore, but you may still find this unbelievable. I'm Greg, he's Chip. This is the News Guardians on Fox Radio 910.
News Guardians on Fox Radio 910.
Jamming. So the fastest hour in local radio is almost over. This goes by so quick.
Well, we got two stories we need to get to before. So we teased this all show, and that's about the bakery. And many people have heard this story about this bakery in Colorado where the baker refused to make wedding cakes for gay marriages because of his religious convictions.
Oh, my gosh. I was so ostracized by my friends. And all over the country that I was connecting with online, trying to explain to them that this was just a horrible thing to use government to point a gun at this guy and force him to bake cakes for people he didn't want to bake cakes for.
He'll bake a cake for anybody. He just is not going to decorate. He's a master cake decorator, like that, because it's a show called Cake Boss where the guy does these fancy cakes. He's a guy like that. He says, I'll bake you a cake. I'm just not going to spend I'm not going to make an artistic cake presentation for a wedding based on gay marriage because my religious convictions don't allow me to do that.
Now, wait till the first redneck wedding reception band doesn't want to play the gay wedding and they get sued. I mean, this is anyway.
But anyway,
the point here is that the ostracization over this idea that people have freedom of association is something that's lost. Even with people that I'm close to, they just don't.
They're perfectly fine with it. But it's more.
Oh, it gets worse.
The owner of the Masterpiece Cake Shop in Lakewood, Colorado, was directed to change his store policies immediately and force his staff to attend sensitivity training sessions. For the next 2 years, Phillips will also be required to submit quarterly reports to the commission. It's a state commission that does licensing in Colorado, to confirm that he has not turned away customers based on their sexual orientation.
Where in the world does government get the authority to force private individuals engaging in business activity to get sensitivity training?
Or as the article, think of it as reverse conversion therapy or straight man's rehab so that the state can mandate diversity through conformity. Oh, that's a good line. So, or as one of the attorneys that's working with him, it says they are turning people of faith into religious refugees. Is this a society that we want to live in where people of faith are driven out of business? Well, obviously, yes, because ACLU and other gay activist groups are hailing this as a great victory for
because they're getting what they want. They're not looking at whether or not the government should have the authority to do this to people. They're just glad it's being done because the outcome is the outcome they want. And that's where we went wrong in the very beginning, is ignoring what government should and shouldn't be able to do in cases where what's being done is just something I want to have happen.
Right.
It's selfishness. Selfishness is at the root of this.
Yes, it's...
and hate. Because the hate there was probably not the guy baking the cakes. The hate came from the two homosexuals getting married that decided they were going to drag this guy through a lengthy legal process and ruin his business because he didn't want to bake them a cake. Who hates who in this situation?
Well, you like this. ACLU attorney Amanda Goad, who heads up the organization's LBGT group, heralded the ruling. Religious freedom is undoubtedly an important American value, but so is the right to be treated equally under the law, free from discrimination. No,
the law is supposed to treat you equally. People don't have to treat you equally.
Religious freedom is a constitutional right.
Well, so is equal treatment under the law. It's in the Constitution, but that doesn't say equal treatment by individuals. Nowhere in the Constitution does it say you are guaranteed to be treated equally by every other individual on the in this country. That's not a right.
But here, because he refused to bake them a cake, what should have been a happy day for us turned to a humiliating and dehumanizing experience because of the way we were treated.
Bull.
They were dehumanized because they had to go to another bakery to get a cake baked.
But I'm not dehumanized because I can't go to Sonic and get a milkshake because they won't let me carry my concealed weapon.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Why is that not? Why am I not supposed to be? See, this is the difference between you selfish jerks and liberty-loving people like us. Is I support Sonic's right on their private property to decide they don't want me to bring my concealed weapon there.
Right?
I just won't go to Sonic.
And
that's exactly what these two homosexuals needed to do. Go to a different bakery.
Exactly. It's called
instead of treating other people with hate and getting the government to point guns at them and force them to bend to your will. Try loving other human beings for a change. Good Lord. What is wrong with people?
Well, there was another story you wanted to get to. Are you going to up to it before you, or are you going to stroke out?
This is amazing. So this is in Washington State. They had an award ceremony, end-of-school award ceremony in this high school. This is Bellingham High School. And this is the joke that was told at the awards ceremony. I'm going to have to leave some of the words out. So a teacher, a lawyer, and a priest are on a plane. And all of a sudden they find out the plane's going down and it's going to crash. And the teacher yells, "Save the children!" And the lawyer yells, "F the children!" And the priest says, "Do we have time for that?"
And
that was told at a high school award ceremony. You got to be kidding me.
Words can't even convey how ridiculous that is.
Welcome to the Socio-Political Horror Show. I'm Greg. He's Chip. And it is impossible to surprise us.
You people
anymore.
Is crazy. That's some crazy stuff right there. Well, if you want some sanity, come out to the Roanoke Tea Party meeting tonight at Holiday Inn Tanglewood at 6:30, and you get to see Tony DeTora.
Yep, he'll be there.
And also, I got a note here. There's an honor flight for World War II D-Day veterans coming to Roanoke this morning at 11 a.m. at the airport.
Oh, nice.
So,
and there's a big ceremony at the D-Day Memorial for the 7th anniversary of the D-Day that they're saying this is going to be the last big ceremony because there's so few of these veterans left. So if you'd like to get out there and say thank you to these men who freed a continent, and talk with them, let them tell you that this is living history.
And it's going to be gone very, very soon.
It is. It's going to be gone very soon. So it's at the D-Day Memorial, which is out in Bedford. I'm sure you can probably find some information on the internet to tell you what time, but I would strongly encourage you to go meet these people and talk to them and find out just what it was like for Americans to be part of America when it was the best America it could be, not the socio-political horror show that we live in today. I'm Greg.
I'm Chip.
We'll see you tomorrow.